Hey everyone, Scott's Low Budget Projects on YouTube again. Today we're doing an odd little video. Like I said in some of my previous videos, I normally don't do a step-by-step repair thing. Well, today's a little different. My 95 Ford Ranger, I had a little bit of an issue, would have been last week, right after we got our power back. I went to move it to... I went to move it to. I was dealing with, high mileage vehicle. Head gasket is starting to leak on that truck, I believe. Unfortunate, I haven't owned it that long, but paid $400 for this Ranger, so is what it is. I don't really care about that too much. I got you on the tripods. If you're wondering why you're getting put in weird angles, that's because of the tripod. Anyway, try to clear state of mind here. It's about a little after 11:30 today on a Sunday. Anyway, I was adding a stop leak, well, they call it head gasket in a bottle. Blue Devil makes it. I was in the process of pouring that in there, following the procedure on it. You drain it out after a while, and then it says dump regular antifreeze and it replaces your thermostat, all that. Well, I didn't mess with replacing the thermostat because the truck already had a new thermostat in it that I put in there earlier when I was dealing with the heating issues it was having. The temp gauge would spike up and then drop down. Very odd. But the truck never really technically ever overheated, so really don't know what was going on there. Well, eventually I started noticing the signs of your head gasket going bad, white smoke out the tailpipe, that sort of thing. And I could smell coolant, I think. It does have oil that burns on the valve covers, so you can kind of smell. It's got multiple smells, let's put it that way. And the sweet smell is pretty generally speaking a coolant leak. So decided, well, we'll try that fix, because let's be honest, this truck's got over 300,000 miles on it according to the previous owner. I'm not going to dump a bunch of money into it trying to fix it. It's an okay truck, but I'm going to be honest with you, if the motor goes, the truck goes. Sounds bad, but it is what it is. And if I get a wild hair, maybe I can do a motor swap on it or something, but I don't think I'm going to get that invested in this truck. Anyway, as I was doing this, I went and test drove the truck, because it says you have to drive it, test drive it or whatever, and then recheck your fluid levels. Not a big deal. To do so, at least in my experience, that truck works best when you check, when you run it to get the air out of the system and park it up on an incline with the front end up in the air. Well, I have a little hill out in my yard, and I came back from the test drive. I was going to pull up on a hill. Well, it's a manual transmission truck, and just wasn't thinking. I had the truck in second. I drove up on the hill and I stalled it. I'm like, dang it, shoot. So restarted the truck, went to put it up in the first. Grr. What the heck? Went to go in reverse. Grr. What is going on here? So I did it a couple more times and finally clicked in the first, but a little bit of a grind and it went in the first. I drove up on the hill there and I went, something's going on with the clutch. So I vetoed the whole air bleeding system process, because wait, now I think I got a clutch issue. And sure enough, the clutch decided that it was pissed off at the world and didn't want to shift through the gears properly. So, feeling defeated and annoyed, decided to park it back into the carport and walked inside and just said, heck with it, I'll deal with it another time. Well, in the process, I had rolled the windows down because I was driving around. I had the heater on full blast, and I was trying not to bake myself out of the truck. It was a warmer day. So I rolled both the windows down. Didn't think anything of it. Truck's been having no issues as far as that regard. Well, pulled it back in the carport, went to roll up the driver's side window, nothing. Passenger side window rolled right up. Driver's side window, nothing. I'm like, great. The window quit working. So, typical people say, well, it's a high mileage truck, maybe the wires broke or something, the door switch. No, I did the typical wiggle the wires around and stuff, nothing. I pushed down on the switch, you can hear the window relay clicking, so I'm, as I say, what happens when you assume. I hear the relay clicking when I'm holding the power window switch down for the driver's side window, so I'm assuming there's no broken wires. So, I went out on a limb and I decided to buy a wonderful eBay special window motor for it, which I got right here in this package. It is not quite an OEM one. I thought what I ordered was an OEM style one. Well, this is kind of your universal Chinesium replacement one, which I'm a little disappointed at because what I ordered didn't quite look like the picture. So anyway, today I'm going to go through the process of testing and installing this window motor in the driver's side window, and hopefully it fixes this. So you'll be getting pause, start and stop. This will be one of those type of videos. Might turn into a multi-part video. I apologize for that. But we're going to try to work through this together. The truck has been sitting. I have not driven it because, like I said, the driver's side window won't go up. It's been in the carport. It's been raining off and on the last few days, so I really haven't been messing with this Ranger. I've been driving my F-150 to work, the one with the snow blade on it, that one. May get a little wild here and try to fix that one today too. I have one of the fans isn't working because one of the connectors it must have not been crimped well. Well, it got hot and it broke the connector end off on it. Not entirely sure. That truck already had some aftermarket cooling fans and stuff. They're electric fans on that truck that somebody put on there. I didn't do any of that, so you know, it's probably some Chinese stuff. So how good the quality is, I don't really know. So anyway, we're gonna give this a shot right now, and I'll get things situated outside here, and then I'll bring you back. So pause for now. We'll be back. And we're back. I got the Ranger pulled out here. Got the door panel. I'll move you over here so you can kind of see sort of what I'm doing. Apologize if you get a lot of interference shots where you're seeing a lot of my back end, but we're sitting kind of on the edge of concrete here, so you'll see what you see, I guess, and I'll explain what I'm doing as I'm taking stuff off. It's a pretty easy thing to do. Most people can figure this out on their own, but this is one of those. I'm making a video. Let's just do it. So here we go. You take these two Phillips head screws off underneath the grab handle here on the door. And I have my little bit driver here. You can use a regular screwdriver. It's not that big deal. I just happen to have one, so I'm just doing it the lazy way. And this door has been messed with over the years, so I have to make sure there's no extra screws shoved into it. Because a lot of people break these door handles on these trucks. This one, I believe has clips. Try to remove them, but it may require some extra effort. Like there are some hidden screws down here. Apologize if this looks like I'm really struggling, because it's been a while since I've done this on this truck. So I have had this window, or I have had this door panel off once before, but it has been a minute, so bear with me. I'll come back here when I get the door panel off. It's not really that complicated. It's just a matter of struggle busting. So rather than bore you with all the grunting and groaning and cussing and things of that nature, I'll get back to you when I get it off. So see you in a second. Okay, bringing it back in a little bit earlier than I expected. There's a screw down here in this corner. This truck's kind of beat up over the years, so this Phillips head screws, it was kind of obscured by the felt / fabric here. Anyway, this portion here, which is your grab handle assembly, this unclips from the door panel. Like I said, I kind of forgot about it. There's a Phillips head screw up inside of here. You need to take that off, and then next you need to unclip all the switches from the panel here, which I'll do that, and shouldn't take too terribly long, but if it does, I guess just wait longer. There's one. Two, and the third one's a little bit interesting. They use actually Phillips head screws to hold the actual window switch on, which is a bit interesting. Ford was doing some weird stuff in the 90s. And you can see they have a Phillips head screw, which may be hard to see on camera, but I assure you it's a Phillips head screw. They have two Phillips head screws holding this backside of the switch together. Try not to drop the screws. Or in my case, the whole thing just comes out of the door panel. Making that kind of irrelevant to do, but you say if your door panel wasn't used and abused over the years, that normally stays in the door. So anyway, that didn't really need to come off. But anyway, so next you just pull up on the door panel. There are no locking tabs on these particular trucks. Some have them. You can see on these, give you up close and personal, they have these half hooks that you just lift up and they unhook. That's basically all over the door here. So all you got to do is up and then pull towards you. So I'll set that over here off camera. And then this is going to be the part that might be tough to see. They have this inner dust panel thing here. And then down here, which I will test my new motor before I get too excited. I'll unplug the old motor here. There's a 2-wire plug-in, round pin plug-in down here. And then this wire on the door, I will plug the new motor into it. And then I'll turn the key on and verify everything works. And if it doesn't, then I know I either goofed up and it's not the actual window motor that's the problem, or we got another issue. So you're along with me for this one. So, and I will be modifying this, I think, just because I don't need these universal. It's pretty ridiculous how they make this stuff. I mean, really, it does not need to be this long. I mean, we're talking over a foot long here, and the original one is literally just right off the motor. They have this weird adapter thing, and then there's like an extension. I don't know why they make stuff like this, but anyway, this is the style of plug-in this motor has. I know because I've messed with this before. Anyway, we'll be plugging it in here in a second, and we'll test it. If it works, cool. If it doesn't, well, back to the drawing board. Okay, she is plugged in. Turn the key on. And since I just so happened to look out and the window switch stayed with it, and guess what? Motor works. It was the motor the whole time. So we'll be switching out the window motor. Cut the key off. Keys out of the ignition so I don't run the battery dead. My particular truck, the dome light doesn't work in it anymore. Or it does, but I unhooked it because I was having problems with it. But anyway, this particular truck, I have modified this once before. I drilled this out to, you can do a modification to these motors when they are starting to go bad. On the inside of this motor here, there are 3 plastic rollers. And for those of you that your motor still works, but the motor won't, like you can hear it running, but your window won't go up or down, or vice one way or not the other. On the original motors, there's a snap ring you can take off. You slide this piece out, then you pull the cover plate off, and then you'll see this big ground up mess of plastic looking stuff. Tip it over, dump it all out, clean it out the best you can. And then the trick they have, you can actually take 3 1/4-inch nuts, just regular standard 1/4-inch nuts, shove them in, there's like a triangle looking piece there, and you jam them in the corners that it is not occupying, or that, you know, the voids they are not occupying. That's what those original plastic rollers were. Over time they get brittle and they break. Anyway, that's a fix you can do for them. It works actually pretty darn good, but in my case, the motor, the lady that used to own this truck, she was a smoker, so I'm guessing the window went up and down quite a bit in this truck, unfortunately. So it got a lot more wear than the other windows did in the truck. So I'm gonna try and do this as easily as I can. I don't know how well it's gonna go. Like I said, it always looks easy on camera, but there's often struggles that are not viewed. So I'll put you on pause again. I'll yank this motor out. To get the motor out, looks like 3 10mm bolts that hold the motor to the window mechanism. This truck here still uses the old style that has the arms that, you know, go like this. Some of your newer style stuff, you're going to have cable mechanisms, and typically, at least in my experience, on those type of vehicles, does replace the entire thing. There are people out there who say you can do just the motor, but I've had problems with it. It gets out of time and then stuff binds up and it just doesn't work right. So Yes, it costs more, but it's just one of those things. Save yourself a headache. Just replace the entire assembly. But if you're really trying to penny pinch stuff, which I'm one of those people that, yes, normally that's me, but the headache ain't worth it. I will spend the extra $40 it is to replace the whole entire assembly versus just the motor. I believe you can get just the motor on certain ones. A lot of your newer F-150s have them. But most of the time when those break, the motor isn't the problem that breaks. It's actually the cable mechanism that hooks to the motor. And, you know, back in the older days or whatever, people would just replace the problem. Like on this, for some reason, if one of the rails would break, you would just replace the arm part, and then you would just swap the motor over. Which, on this stuff, yes, you can do that. That's not a big deal because stuff bolts together. Well, on the newer stuff, if it isn't timed correctly, things will get out of sync, things will bind, the window will do weird stuff. And to me, it just, don't mess with it. Just do it the easy way. Like, this is the easy way on this one, because I'll bring you in here close and I'll show you what I did to do the modification. Okay, if you look down here, you see where I'm pointing? There's this big hole. That is not there originally. You can take a, they make a special spot weld driller and drill this hole out so you can access. There's three 8mm bolts. There's one here. There's one down here, and then there's one up here. This one is already there, I believe, and then this one you have to drill out. So really not that big a deal to replace. So I think it's just as easy just to do it that way. Well, anyway, we're going to take those 3 screws out. I'm going to try to fish that motor out there. I may have to push the window up because right now the window's stuck down because the motor quit when it was down, unfortunately. So we'll do that, and then the next thing on the list, we're going to be probably shortening this wiring harness to this current setup, because I can't say I'm a big fan of it. Watch me struggle to unplug this connector. That plugged in extremely hard. There we go. Alright, I'll put you on pause again. We'll get the motor out, and we'll show you what I had to do. So it's just, to me, it's just easier just to do this stuff than to show you what I did afterwards. Less you don't have to hear me grunt and groan, let's put it that way. Prefer that we don't turn this into a weird video. Okay, back again. Take the 3 screws out, push the window up. As you probably heard, it just came back down, but that's how you do to lift the window up. Once you get the motor pulled away from the mechanism, you can just try not to get your hand caught in the mechanism and push up on the assembly, push the window up. Then you can get your hand in here and grab the old motor. Hold the window with your other hand so it don't come down and crush your hand. And voila, old motor is out. Looks like there's a bracket on the back side of this, which I will have to transfer over, which is not a big deal. We'll be back here in a second. But anyway, since we're at it and I'm talking about it, if you want to do that modification that I was telling you, this is the original style motors that come in these. Like I said, there are typically 3 round little, I don't know if they're round, I've never seen one in good condition. To get this apart, there's this little plastic pin in here. You can just pop it out with the screwdriver. Anyway, there's a C-clip on the end of this. Take the C-clip off, pull this gear off, then this backing plate will come off. And like I said, you'll see all that ground up crap inside there. And that's what, to get that little bit more life out of these, you can replace those with just 3/4 inch nuts. Stick it back together like this, and then stick it back in the truck, and then put the original screws back in there, and you're good to go. Originally, this had a rivet in here. I didn't put that back in there, which, if you're wondering why there's an extra hole here, it really shouldn't matter. This motor is pretty well fixed in the truck. It doesn't really move too much, so if you want to do that, go ahead. I mean, it doesn't, to me, I don't think it really affects anything. You can even go as far as to put a bolt in there, and then like a nut. Just make sure it's not super long. Otherwise, well, now this one, I guess it won't matter, because you're on the front side here. If you're back on this rear side here, the glass is back here, so you would interfere. But anyway, I'll switch this over here quick, put you on pause again, and just to show you, I guess, this is in fact the original Ford window motor in this truck with 300,000 miles on it, which is pretty impressive. So I'll put you on pause again. We'll get the stuff switched over here. I think off camera, I'm probably gonna modify that, you know, so it's this long versus, you know, 2 feet long like the other one is. That way we don't have a bunch of wire laying in the door. So I'll be right back again and continue. Okay, slight little bit off of the beaten path, or the direct path here. Took this bracket off the old motor here. We're having a bit of an issue. Keep in mind, this is something I've bought off of eBay, so it's one of those, it fits every Ford ever made according to its layout or stuff. Well, anyway, this rubber harness plug here that comes out, the original motor, it's very different. They have it coming out in two separate places here. So unfortunately, this interferes with that bracket. So I'm going to try installing this without that bracket. Like I said, I don't think it really needs it. Maybe from the factory they were just being paranoid because they're worried the thing was going to fly apart or something. But I didn't have it hooked up on the other one. So I'm going to cross my fingers and hopefully this works. It may not, but I guess bear with me and we'll be back again. Also in the process, I'm going to convert the wires so they're not, 10 feet long like these ones are. So we'll be right back again. Okay, back again. Decided to make this into a much shorter plug. So it just plugs into here now. Make sure I do it the right way. Click. And now it's not a mile long. So shove her back in the door here. And I'll be right back. Okay guys, we're back. I'll be lying if it said it went super smooth. It is working, but I think, as I said earlier, this plate thing was supposed to originally brace the original motor. Well, now that it's not in there, I got the key on, you can see for yourself. When it was going up, the auto function started working again. Unfortunately, it's a bit noisy. Not really sure what to do on that. Basically, I think I'm just gonna run it. It's a 300,000 mile truck. I think I can live with it. Seems to be working. When it pops, the motor moves. If it was riveted to the door, it probably wouldn't do that. Before I didn't have a rivet or anything holding it. It was working pretty good. I'll play around with this some more. Maybe I can get it to be quieter. I'm not super happy with that, so keep messing with it until maybe I figure something out, or it might just be one of those things I'll just live with it and see how things go. As long as the window goes up and down, that's kind of my main concern right now on this truck. So we'll be back here in a second and may or not be able to fix it. If I can't fix it, well, it is what it is, but that's the proper way to install one. There's those 3 screws, you put it back in there, make sure you line up with the gear. If it wasn't lined up with the gear, it wouldn't even work. So the fact that it's popping and banging might just be a little bit of a misalignment issue on the motor, and I said that brace thing not being in there may not be helping things. So I said if it didn't line up in the gear, you wouldn't even be able to bolt the 3 screws into it. So like I said, I'll play around with this some more. We'll see what happens. If not, we'll go on to the next thing. I got 2 other things I'm probably going to try. One's going to be a simple thing. I got an Airhawk seat pad for my motorcycle. I got another seat for it, but it's a CSC SG400 motorcycle. I'm going to mess with that real quick because it just so happens to be right next to where this pickup's parked. So I'm going to try that real quick. That's a couple minute thing. Set it on there, sit on it, see how it feels, see if I like it. Hopefully I do, because it was almost an $80 seat air cushion thing. And I know a lot of people swear by them. They say they're pretty comfortable. They use them a lot in the medical industry for people in wheelchairs and stuff like that. For, you get sore from sitting in your wheelchair all day. I understand that. That would be kind of very uncomfortable. So we'll give that a try. And the reason I got one of those, because way back when I was, I say middle school, high school era, went snowboarding one time, and it was a homemade snowboard. It had like a piece of, I forget what kind of plastic it was. My dad made it. Anyway, we took it down the toboggan run at a state park, Mahoney State Park, over by Ashland, and got going down the toboggan run. The snow had melted and it got real hard and icy. I hit a real bad bump with it and launched myself about 4 feet up in the air and just right on my tailbone and bruised it pretty bad, and was pretty uncomfortable for a few weeks there. And anyway, I was able to kind of overcome it, but ever since then, yeah, sitting on certain seats and stuff just really irritates my backside. So Not to be TMI, but hey, something, if any other guys have issues with that, maybe give these Airhawk guys a shot. Might work for you, may not. I had one of those gel foam pad things that was on the motorcycle before. I did not like it, did not feel comfortable, put pressure in all the wrong areas. And to me, it was just as bad as the factory seat was. So I even went so far as to adding foam to the top of the factory foam pad. I put like window seal foam. I was going to do that. Yeah, it worked, but it didn't make it any more comfortable. So I would recommend avoid doing that to your motorcycle seat if you want it to be more comfortable, because to me it didn't help at all. So mess with this window some more. We'll come back if I can figure it out. If not, I'm just going to tell you, hey, we're going to reassemble it and just live with it. So not exactly the ideal ending to this fix, but at least the window works now. So I'll get back in here in a second and we'll see how it goes. I have a feeling it's probably going to stay like this, unfortunately, because I don't really know what else to do with it. That's what you get sometimes when you buy cheap eBay stuff. It doesn't always work out in your favor. So, and the thing is, it wasn't even that cheap. I think I spent 60 bucks on that motor, so a little disappointed. And it wasn't even the one they had listed in the picture. This is a plastic one. The one they showed in the picture was metal, so kind of disappointed with them. Anyway, get back to you in a minute and we'll see how the things go. Well, it's been a few minutes. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to get it any better than that, so it's still hoppy, but we'll shove it back together for now and just say good enough. Sorry if you're expecting a little bit better outcome. This is just the reality of things sometimes, so good enough for what it's for. We're just going to run it for now, and if it breaks, I'll go and buy one from the auto parts store and cross my fingers and hope it works better. So I'm going to wrap this one up, and then we'll start on the next thing. Well, and there you have it, a halfway successful window motor installation. Door panel I'll put back together. Window does technically work. The little chattering thing is some sort of anomaly. Might be because that brace is not in there, but the other one didn't do that even though the brace wasn't attached. So nice thing is I get the auto function back. So that's something it didn't have, wasn't working for quite a while. I mean, yes, this is kind of annoying, I'm not gonna lie, but I guess at least it works. Like I said, not super impressed. Definitely have had smoother success with other things on this truck. Anyway, the other issue this truck had is the clutch got air in it. And apparently sitting 3 days last weekend, I jumped in it Monday afternoon after work, and clutch started working again. So I don't know what the heck's going on there. Why all of a sudden it stopped working and now it's working again. So next thing I think we'll move on to is I'm going to try putting that seat on my motorcycle here quick, and that should be a pretty quick job. And after that, we'll try to tackle that fan on my F-150. It's just that should be a real easy one. It's just strip some wires, put a new spade terminal connector end on there, plug it back in, and then turn a key on and see if the fans run. Because right now only one of the fans is running. So put you pause again, and then we'll get this truck out of the, or well, we can leave this truck here. I'll go swap the seat over on my CSC SG400, and we'll sit on that and see how it feels. So be right back. Okay, back again. Messing around with this is my CSC SG400, or as they call it, CSC RE3 SG400. It is actually a Zhongsheng motorcycle. I've owned this since 2021. It doesn't have a ton of miles on it. Curious if it'll actually start. It's been sitting for a while, so. It is a fuel injected bike. Currently has 9,900 miles on it, so it's not high mileage. So see if she starts. Fuel pump's kicking on. It's trying. Okay, it's been sitting for a while. So. The fuel pump build up. There she goes. Parallel twin, like 380 some cc's. They call it a 400, but it's not really. They kind of round up. The numbers are varying online, so I don't know how many cc's it actually is. It is a water-cooled motorcycle.
tires that I have on here, they're Navi aftermarket. I had a friend of mine install them for us, or for me I should say. Anyway, I'm going to take the original rapidly modified seat I was talking about off, and I'm going to put this is the new CSC seat for it. This on top here is the Airhawk. This is the Airhawk 2, they say, so it's got a different style air bladder in it. It says it's not quite as good as the original, but at the time I was not aware, so I just bought the one that was cheaper. Anyway, I'll shut the bike off for now, and maybe I'll go ride it around a little bit. I can't take you for a ride, unfortunately, because I don't have a setup. Like I said, I'm using my phone, and I live on gravel, so I really don't want to drop my phone jacking around trying to make a motorcycle video. Try to get the key out of the ignition here. I have to have the key to take the seat off, because that's how they design these. There's a little key lock here. Then you just basically pull this off, and like I said, this is the factory seat for it. I have to take my registration and stuff out from underneath it, which I've since upgraded to a I don't know what you call it, a virtual registration, or insurance I should say. So if I do get stopped, they can at least verify that I actually own this motorcycle. Oh, for crying out loud. They're supposed to have these like release style zip ties on them, and they're being difficult, so bear with me. This was originally made to hold the tool pouch underneath the motorcycle seat. I meant to say I could pull it out. Yeah, it broke anyway, so out with the old, in with the new. Shove that back underneath there because it needs to be underneath there. Plus I have the wow, thing just ain't playing today. There we go. I'd be lying if I said this is going smooth. I can do this with one hand. This thing is being extremely difficult today. Kind of hesitant to put this under here at the moment. Okay. Supposed to be a quick little jaunt, but this might take longer than I thought. Okay, put that on there. And yes, I realize you can't see what I'm doing, but all I'm doing is basically attaching zip ties to my, I have a plastic bag with all my registration and stuff underneath the seat, so I have access to it. And here, she clipped on. Bike's a little dirty because it's been sitting in here, out in the elements. Give it a sit and see how I like it. To adjust these Airhawk seats, there's a zipper on the back here, and there's basically a little, we'll call it a quarter turn valve, and you basically just blow air into it to inflate, and then you can turn the valve to let air out. And they said on the website, I watched a video on it, or not a website, but a YouTube video, and they have a video on it. To when you sit on the seat, they said you don't want it completely inflated, because if it's completely inflated, it actually doesn't do anything as far as support. You're basically like sitting on a pillow, and it doesn't really provide support in the correct places. It's too firm, is what they're getting at. And they said basically release it until you're just a little bit above the actual seat, and then they said that's actually where you'll get the most comfort. So we'll give it a try. I did test this out inside the house already. I have a folding chair, and I set it on there. I just put the little locking peg behind the chair part, and it worked out pretty well. So sitting on it right now, it's definitely a lot more comfortable. This is a pretty big improvement on this bike. I'll be honest, the seat on this bike, you could drive about 30 miles, at least for me, and you started becoming very uncomfortable. This one now, I won't say it's like a night and day improvement, but it is a very big improvement. It's a lot more comfortable. I mean, it's kind of like sitting on a marshmallow. That's the best way to describe it. And some might say that might be a little bit too much air, which at the moment I kind of agree. I'm going to try to adjust it here real quick. Maybe I can find the little Schrader valve thing. And like I said, you just twist the little thing a little bit. You can get it to turn. Instead, you don't want too much air on it because then it, like, you basically roll on the seat, and it's really not good on a motorcycle. For those of you that ride motorcycles, I am not. This is my first motorcycle actually, so I've never had a motorcycle before this. So some of you may not agree with my choice on Chinese brand stuff, but I like the bike. It's fun. Fuel injected. I wanted something simple. Carbureted stuff, some people might say, is a little bit more of an entry-level thing. That, you know, that's what I should have got. This is a bigger bike. I could have got a 250. They make a smaller version. CSC does. They call it an SG400 I'm a bigger guy, as you can probably tell. A 250 is just a really small bike for me. And this bike is capable of doing at least 80 miles an hour with me on it. So I'm happy with that. I know it's not going to be doing 100 easy. It's not like a lot of your bikes are anymore. I prefer something a little bit more simple. I don't need a really big bike. I don't do a lot of riding. I work 3 miles from town. So for me, this is just kind of a little weekend cruiser, we'll call it. And just every once in a while, you're having a rough day or something, you need to get out and just get some wind therapy. And this is a good example of that type of motorcycle. I did have my Challenger, which you could say that was kind of the automotive equivalent of this bike. Granted, the Challenger is quite a bit faster, but I will say I do enjoy this bike. To me, it was a well worth purchase. Unfortunately, CSC is no longer selling this bike. You can probably find used ones and other things like that. I'm in Nebraska. To my knowledge, I talked to one of the salespeople there, and they said, to their knowledge, that at least when I bought it, there might have been maybe another person after me. I'm the only one in Nebraska that owns one of these, so it's a pretty rare bike in that retrospect. They aren't exactly a rare bike on the global market. I'm sure they're kind of all over the place in China and India and all the other countries or whatever, because they're more, you know, obviously European. That's kind of where they, you know, China is part of Europe, sort of. Anyway, not to get not to be a geography person on you, but China is attached to Europe, so therefore, you know, Russia, all those countries are attached. So there could be those bikes in that area. The U.S. is kind of a newer market for them. They're trying to expand. This bike, I would say, kind of looks like a Royal Enfield or even a Triumph. That's kind of the look they were going for. The motor itself is actually, from what I was told, it was developed off of a Honda parallel twin engine. So that's why this bike is like what it is. It actually has a fairly good sized fuel tank on it. It's a 5-gallon fuel tank, so it can go pretty far on one tank of gas, and I like that. You know, it's not the most fuel efficient bike, I will admit that, but, and also, well, when I ride, I tend to ride kind of aggressively, I guess you would say. I know, like I said, it's a fun bike for me. I didn't buy it just to drive normally. You know, every once in a while you just want to crack the throttle and do that sort of thing with it. It's not a crazy wheelie popping, you know, that sort of street machine like a lot of people buy when they get crotch rockets and stuff like that. This is what they call a cafe racer, so it has the short front fork on it, so it's kind of tucked up, kind of like your old Ducatis and stuff from like the 70s and 80s. And, you know, Hondas and all those other bikes made very similar bikes to this. I've always loved that bike style. The other bike I was always kind of interested in was like a bobber style motorcycle. They took a lot of like a lot of your old Suzukis and CB series Hondas, and they'd bob the back end so they make them sit low. Those bikes are always kind of neat. It was kind of like a wannabe Sportster, Harley Davidson Sportster sort of look. The Sportsters, to me, I don't hate them, but I just don't care for the long forks on the front of them. That was just never the style I liked. I do not like. I'm not a huge chopper type of guy, which is why Harleys were just never like the bike I wanted to get. Now, don't get me wrong, Harley makes all kinds of bikes. They made just trying to think off the top of my head. Oh, the Harley Davidson Nightster. That was an amazing looking bike to me. Fortunately, way out of my price range. This bike, I believe, shipped to my house was a little over $6,000. That sounds like a lot, but keep in mind it was a brand new motorcycle at the time. Unfortunately, due to being a Chinese imported bike, they did kind of cut some corners, and unfortunately, the tires just so happened to be one of them. The tires that I had on this bike, it sits in this carport. I don't have a shed. I don't have a garage to put this bike in. You know, a carport, I guess you could call it a shed. But there's no door on the end of this. This is wide open to the elements. My Ranger is parked right next to it here. And then I got my engine that I pulled out of my Ranger sitting in here, sharing space with it. So, unfortunately, it sits out in the elements, but it is not in direct sunlight. It's not getting rained on constantly. The only thing I really have to worry about in here is I get birds. Birds get in here and they, unfortunately, they crap all over the motorcycle, which is a little irritating because I'm trying to keep this thing nice. Unfortunately, it gets quite dirty in here. It is quite filthy right now. It needs to be washed. But anyway, this bike here, I ended up, the tires that were on it, they're, you know, your typical Chinese. I don't know, remember what brand they were. They were really dry rotted. They had some pretty large cracks in the sidewall. And the friend I mentioned, he runs a small motorcycle shop out of his garage. He was originally a motorcycle mechanic in a bigger shop. Things happened. He didn't like management. He decided to go out and do his own thing. So now he runs that. He kind of works on. He was actually trained to work on like Triumphs and Royal Enfields. So he knows a lot about your European English bikes. He knows about Nordens and those sort of older bikes. He's a younger guy, which is kind of, you know, rare. Because most of the people that are into those bikes are well into their 70s. But is that he's a younger guy. He real smart person when it comes to motorcycle. Of course, unfortunately, he had never actually worked on one of these before, so he's like, because I was asking him when he was putting the tires on, I was very worried about doing this myself. I'm not a motorcycle mechanic. I am an automotive mechanic, and I know a lot of this stuff kind of does transfer over to automotive, but as far as getting tires off, I'm like, how do you do that? This bike does not have a center stand on it. It just has a regular kickstand. So to lift this bike up, you have to either have a hoist or some sort of lifting apparatus to go underneath to lift up on the bottom of the, I don't know if you call it the frame, oil pan exhaust. I think you just lift on the exhaust, and that's kind of how you lift this bike up. Not exactly ideal, and I am definitely not set up for that out here. I was just very worried about damaging the bike just by doing something stupid. I have changed oil on it before because break-in was 500 miles, and I changed oil 500 miles, and obviously I haven't driven it a ton since. I got almost about 500 more miles on it now, but I've driven it around a fair amount. But last year I wasn't able to ride it because I hurt my shoulder, partially tore a rotator cuff, and the PT people were like, no, don't ride your motorcycle, that's actually really bad for it. So unfortunately it kind of got shelved at that point, but the weather was starting to get colder, so really wasn't the end of the world. Plus I had other stuff to do, the Ranger project being one of those things. Anyway, so this is a fun little bike. I like it. Like I said, if any of you guys are interested in getting into motorcycle stuff, I strongly recommend getting a bike like this. Why? You could get yourself a Honda, a Kawasaki, a Yamaha, you know, Harley, whatever floats your boat. If you're into like, you know, exotic stuff, BMW, Ducati, all those, you know, Benelli, all those import, what do you want to call them, European bikes, whatever. You like what you like. This bike just appealed to me because it was kind of a new version of an old bike. And some people would argue that old bikes are easier to work on. The problem with me is I live in a rural area, so there are not, I can't just go to my local motorcycle shop and get parts for 40-year-old bikes. This bike, yes, I do have to get parts ordered online. For example, CSC is in Azusa, California, not anywhere near here. But the people that work there are actually very nice people. They, I've talked to them a few times. They're able to help me out with some stuff. Originally, I was planning on getting a seat made for this bike. I reached out to a company called Sargent, and they make seats for, I believe they call it a Janus or Janus motorcycle. They look like an old, like early 1920s, like Harleys. and Indians, where they had like a round kind of, well, not round, like an oval shaped tank. You know, everything was very steampunk looking. They make a motorcycle like that. And anyway, they were the ones, I guess, according to some people that I've talked to online, they make the seats for those motorcycles. I was able to email one of the people from their company. I had talked to a few other companies about having a seat made. They didn't really give me the time of day. They just kind of dismissed it as, yeah, like, I was trying to really tell them, like, these are not a rare bike. They're all over the place. They're very common bikes. To them, it was just like, it's just another Chinese import bike. They're not going to take off, so we're not going to deal with them. But yet they're making motorcycle seats for a Janus or Janus company, which I personally don't think has that big of an influence. It's a kind of a niche bike. Certain people like them, but it's, you know, got that old-timey kind of look, like Model A, Model T sort of stuff, where everything's very mechanical looking. This, like I said, this has kind of a neat, you know, late 60s, early 70s, 80s kind of tied in, you know, that sort of look to it. And then, of course, they throw some modern touches on it, like you get yourself a LED light on the front of it, which it's not super great, but just like anything else, you can always change things. Bikes are made to be, you know, swapped and stuff. You can put different grips and stuff on it. Unfortunately, when I first got this bike, I actually tweaked the handlebar when I was taking it off the shipping pallet, and it fell over, and I tweaked the handlebar. I did my best to straighten it. It's still a little bit off. I do have another handlebar to put on here. I haven't put it on here yet, but like I said, I don't ride the bike a ton. I do want to ride it some more, but unfortunately, I have some other projects. Like I said, I'm trying to get that Ranger done, my V8 swap Ranger done, so this may not get ridden as much as I have in my head, but I might take it out on a weekend occasionally if I want to go do something. I really don't ride this in bigger towns. Like I said, I'm a new rider, so I am still pretty paranoid about driving in traffic and stuff. Smaller towns where I live is there, you know, it's really common. You know, we're talking under 1,000 people. Most of the town, like the town I work in, is like 400 some people. So, and it's a pretty agricultural town, so there isn't a lot of traffic. We don't have stoplights, any of that stuff in town. So, this is the kind of bike that I prefer to ride in that situation. Some may argue that you need a bigger bike for things. This works just fine for me. So anyway, next part of this video, like I said, it might already be 2, working on 3 parts even at this stage. I kind of just go off of what's working with the video. Like I said, I'm doing this on my phone, so I really have no control over film time and stuff like that. I don't have a button thing to turn it on and off. I do have a mic system. I have a lapel mic that I actually bought a while back. It works fine. The only problem is, if you're moving around a lot, you hear a lot of rustling, and then if it's too close to you, it's just like, it's like you're announcing like right into the microphone. And the video I did with my Ranger when I first got it, I had it right up here, and it was just echoing so bad. And granted, I was in a small space inside the cab of the truck. Here you might hear some echoing because like I'm in a carport and there's no insulation, so it's going to echo. Anyway, the next part of this video, it's just going to be kind of a quick and dirty splice on a I forget male or female speed terminal onto my F-150. Hopefully it goes well, and then try it out, and we'll finish up the video there. So pause you for a minute, and we'll be back with more stuff. Okay, F-150 time. Keys for the truck here. I'll give you I have it wired up direct to the battery right now. It's off, well, not the battery, but off of the key switch, because it has a temperature switch in there, but I was having issues with it. So, just turn the key on. I don't know if you can hear that. Electric fan's running. I'll pop the hood and I'll show you. There's 2 fans on this truck. Roll the window down so I don't accidentally lock the door on the truck. I do have extra keys, but it's just more hassle than it's worth. One thing wonderful about working with the snow blade. Straighten the light back out on it, because you hit bumps, the thing falls. I'll set you down here for a second. So sorry if you're looking up at the sky for a minute. Okay. Take you off the tripod, we'll get you in for some better shots. Alright. Currently this fan here, there's 2 electric fans. There's this one here, and then there's that one there. That one there is currently running. This fan is currently not running. I know you're probably saying, well, it's unplugged, if you can see that. Well, it's unplugged because the harness side of things, the wire end ripped off. It must have got hot or something. I'm not entirely sure what happened there. So I'm going to shut the key off in the truck, and then we'll mess around with wiring, which, like I said, that's a pretty simple fix. It won't take me too terribly long, assuming I can reach things. All right. Anyway, you can see this. If you can see that, this broken off. I know there's a... Okay. This is the good end, the blue part, and then there's this lighter blue part on the here. This end broke off. So basically, I'm going to try to get this off of here. That piece there, the end of it snapped off, and that's why the fan ain't running. So then I got to hook it back into these two guys. Got a male and a female end there. So need to figure out which one I need. Looks like female end. I'll get a female end spliced back on there, and in theory we should have a running fan again. So put you on pause here for a second, and I'll grab my splicing, crimping, and heat shrink stuff, and we'll be back in business. So walking into my shed here real quick to grab some stuff, put you on pause here, and I'll get things, and we'll continue from there.